Other than Luna Park, Australia doesn't really stand out for being a theme park hotspot, but it has had a history of at least trying. If you do enjoy this video, like and subscribe. Let's go.
Australia is almost famous for its rocky history with theme parks.
Is it?
In the last 50 years, Wonderland Sydney, Old Sydney Town, Fox Studios Backlot Sydney, Luna Park Sydney, Magic Kingdom Sydney and Sega World Sydney all opened and then closed, with the outlier being Luna Park, which reopened and then closed again.
This sort of reminds me of Utopia, where they try and think something's a good idea, they try and get it through the door, but in this case, Sydney has got things through the door, but it never works. So maybe Sydney especially needs to give up on theme parks.
And then reopened. Sydney appears to have perfected creating failed theme parks, but it detracts from another famous addition up north, which is rarely discussed and is perhaps one of the biggest, most successful theme parks in Australia, with over 15 million visitors, which was only opened for a single year.
Wow.
In 1988, Australia unofficially turned 200 years old and congratulated itself with the bicentennial celebrations. Officially kicked off with the 16th World Scout Jamboree, the celebration spanned the country with a hot air balloon race from Perth to Sydney, a First Fleet reenactment voyage, and much more. Whilst these events carried on around the country, many would pale in comparison to Australia's largest event for the celebration, World Expo 88. At a cost of 625 million Australian dollars, or just over $1 billion US in today's money, the officially sanctioned exposition by the Bureau of International Expositions featured over 100 pavilions, many of those being from overseas countries and corporations, with the central theme of leisure in the age of technology.
So a World Expo isn't obviously a new thing at all. It's something that happens quite often, and it's bringing all countries together, showing off what you got and things. So that's not new. So I'm wondering how this really links to a theme park, because a World Expo is not a theme park, but I'm sure we will find out in a second.
Hosted in the city of Brisbane, the capital of the state of Queensland, a lot was riding on this event, showcasing Queensland as an international tourism destination. And what better way to feature that than by building a brand new theme park right next door? Included in the cost of admission to Expo 88 was World Expo Park, a theme park purpose-built for the event, which contained 3 brand new roller coasters and a few flat rides, plus a dark ride to throw in the mix.
I don't think the name of World Expo Park is a very good name for a theme park, especially if you were going to want it to last longer than just the year of the Expo. But clearly, as it said earlier, it only lasted a year. Had a lot of people come through that door, but they would have had to certainly change the name, wouldn't they, if they were going to have it long term. Maybe it was just originally planned to only be around for a year. Seems like a waste of materials and everything, but
Expo 88 was designed from the start to only operate for 6 months,
okay.
Whilst World Expo Park was intended to be a permanent legacy for the Expo after its conclusion. But after only 1 year and almost 19 million guests, the park was closed and dismantled, with many of its attractions going elsewhere around Australia, and even internationally. World Expo 88 was the brainchild of James McCormick, the architect who designed the Australian pavilions from Expo 67 to Expo 74. After gaining significant renown for his work, McCormick was commissioned with the urban renewal study of Kangaroo Point in Brisbane in the early 70s. During his study, he discovered that Brisbane would greatly benefit from an exposition and petitioned the government and local officials to get on board. With the bicentennial celebration slowly approaching, It had always been on the cards for Australia to host a World Expo, but many assumed the event would just go to Sydney or Melbourne. When the Queensland state government expressed its interest to host the event, the Australian federal government was sceptical with Brisbane's ability to host such a prestigious mega event. But the success of the 1982 Commonwealth Games held in Brisbane gave Queensland the confidence to push for candidature, and in December of 1983, the Bureau of International Expositions awarded Brisbane with the right to hold the 1988 World Exposition in a specialised category. The budget for Expo 88 was estimated at a staggering 645 million Australian dollars.
I want to say, though, that I know a lot of stuff goes to Sydney and a lot of stuff goes to Melbourne, but I think the main cities in each of the states, maybe not necessarily Darwin, please don't take that offensively, but all of the other four have something real to offer. You know, they're not necessarily a second best. They have their own speciality, maybe. They have their own right to host certain things. And that's clearly showing. You've obviously got the Olympics again over in Brisbane coming up in 32, is it, I think? A while away. But there is no reason why other cities in Australia can't host things.
And was officially sanctioned by the Australian federal government under the terms that the cost be met by the Queensland state government or from private businesses, as, controversially, World Expos often cause significant debt for their operators. With all of this, the state premier agreed to the terms and promoted the Expo as a free enterprise event, solely funded by revenue from ticket sales, sponsorships, and property speculation to promote Brisbane as being ripe for investment, whilst minimising public expenditure. Under eminent domain, the local government acquired 40 hectares of land on the south bank of Brisbane River, opposite the city's CBD, at a cost of 150 million Australian dollars, which, under legislation, would be recovered by the sale of the site after the event. This parcel of land was mainly an industrial area which had become largely derelict over time and was prone to frequent flooding, but, with development, could be saved. Whilst the Expo was designed to be temporary, the revitalisation of the area aimed to be permanent, and the construction helped to bring new life into the South Bank location.
Very, very smart planning by the sounds of it. Whether or not it's actually worked in the long term, it does seem like they had more long-term plans. It wasn't just let's have an expo and then see what happens afterwards. It was, buy this land for the expo, but we will recoup when we sell the land later on. And this is land that isn't really usable, so we can make it usable. I'd like to know what is in place of where this was now. Is it developed now? Is it actually something properly usable? Or has it gone back to just sort of wasteland?
Fondly regarded by many Brisbane residents, during its construction, Expo 88 had its fair share of opposition. The area which the local government was acquiring was not affluent, and whilst the location was mostly industrial, some low-cost housing was required to be removed, which caused negative social impacts. South Bank neighbours also remarked that rental prices were skyrocketing due to property developers purchasing nearby properties to capitalise on the development. Brisbane City Council also voiced its concerns that the South Bank development would affect the viability of the existing city centre, and national media criticised the immense costs of what was regarded as a temporary event. Yet despite all of this, the organisers pushed through on the construction, and with careful planning met their deadlines within their budget, providing a solid foundation for a positive legacy.
How often do budgets get met?
On April 30th, 1988, World Expo 88 was officially opened by Queen Elizabeth II. The event was a wild success, attracting an average of 100,000 visitors per day. Target ticket sales were achieved 11 weeks before the event even opened, ensuring the financial stability of the Expo. The Expo was covered by huge sun sails which protected visitors from the harsh Queensland elements, but they were also attributed to the Expo's iconic skyline and would be immortalised in the event's logo. Expo Oz, designed by Disney's Imagineering division, was the official mascot for the event and was heavily featured in advertisements and merchandise. The Expo featured some amazing pavilions such as New Zealand with a glowworm cave and move-in walkway showcasing Maori culture. The Queensland Pavilion featured a 180-metre-long people mover ride through Queensland of the present and future. Japan showcased an entire botanical garden. Switzerland contained an artificial snow ski slope and cable car ride. And Nepal handcrafted a 3-story peace pagoda.
Wow.
The Vatican attended and featured works of art and artifacts from hundreds and thousands of years ago, and the Magna Carta was also on display from England. There was also technology presented as part of the theme of leisure in the age of technology that by today's standard is rather dated, but with the sort of wacky creations you'd expect for a World Expo, like a robotic self-playing guitar. Though it was the first time that Australia had seen high-definition TV within the Japan Pavilion and text-based internet in the Swiss Pavilion. Italy also embraced technology by showcasing the home of tomorrow, with many futuristic additions designed to make life easier for everybody. Many corporations featured their own pavilions at the event, including IBM, Australia Post, and Cadbury Chocolate. NASA hosted outdoor exhibits with models of their space shuttle and Apollo missions, as well as Universal Studios showcasing props from cinema, such as the car from the TV series Knight Rider.
It seems like a lot of companies were able to get in on this and basically try and sell things. That's almost what it sounds like, a lot of it. It's basically showcasing products people can buy. Now, some of it was obviously in the future that, you can't buy it yet, it's just ideas. But when it mentions about companies like Cadbury's and Ford and whatnot, it then just seems a bit more of a marketing thing rather than celebration. If you actually were around then and you went to the World Expo Park and Expo 88, please let me know what your experiences were in the comments.
To help visitors get around the Expo, a 2.3-kilometre monorail track with 3 trains was constructed at a cost of $12 million.
Jesus!
Whilst practically the route was designed with 2 stations at either end of the Expo to get visitors around with ease, it also served to show off Brisbane by taking you on a scenic route beside Brisbane River and Pacific Lagoon with a short detour through the Queensland Pavilion. Tourists from around the world flocked to Brisbane for the event, but local residents were the main attendee group. Over 500,000 season passes were sold, and many treated the Expo as a recreational amenity instead of a special event. The pavilions and formal entertainment were enjoyed by visitors, but many stayed for the incredible atmosphere that came from the animated walkways and riverfront setting. Brisbane had a reputation of being a quiet city before the Expo, but the recreational opportunities on offer gave locals a new lust for leisure, whilst also propelling the city onto the world stage ripe for investment. Entertainment was also a big focus at the event, featuring many local and international acts. 38 million Australian dollars was invested into creating custom-made acts showcasing different international and local cultures, with many of those being featured at the 10,000-seat spectacular open-air river stage. This was the primary viewing area setting for fireworks and a large-scale laser light display set to music, ended each Expo day at 10 p.m. Across the road from Expo 88 was World Expo Park, a theme park which was included with the cost of admissions into the World Expo and was open from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. The park was on a fairly limited parcel of land and categorized its attractions into A, B, and C rides, with A being the most exciting and C being the least. The A rides on offer were Supernova Roller Coaster, a 5-story indoor high-speed ride through an enclosed dark space, Centrifuge, a suspended swinging coaster that flings you around
No,
in
thank you.
tense twists and
No,
turns.
thank you.
Alien Encounters, a dark ride touted as being a terrifying voyage through an alien world. And Titan, a boomerang shuttle-style roller coaster from Vekoma with multiple inversions.
I must say, it doesn't look like it was the biggest of theme parks, and I think it pretty much said that. But it did look quite small, right? That's not just me thinking that. It does look quite small.
The B-Ride editions were fairly standard flat rides for the time, with C-Rides being almost exclusively for children. The amusement park cost around 25 million Australian dollars, and it saw decent attendance through the Expo. But it appears that the lack of theming, limited greenery, and distance from the waterfront made it a less desirable place to visit than the atmosphere of Expo 88. The final day of the Expo saw its largest attendance at 184,000 people. The closing ceremony was celebrated on the river stage with a concert that showcased all of the Expo's singers and dancers. The concert concluded with the Seekers performing their famous song, "The Carnival Is Over," in what has become an Australian tradition.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Seekers, put your hands together for them. What a fantastic recognition.
Mr Prime Minister, Mr Premier, my Lord Mayor, distinguished guests and ladies and gentlemen. As the Prime Minister indicated, the carnival is now over. Expo 88 has come to a close.
Everyone go home.
A massive fireworks display soon followed, the longest that Australia has ever seen at the time. Whilst in Brisbane River, an icon of the World 88 Sun Sails logo was intentionally set alight to wish the event goodbye. World Expo Park was intended to carry on into the future and to become a staple theme park for Brisbane.
I'm sure it said that it was only meant to be around for about 6 months to a year, unless that was just talking about the actual expo. But they did mention, it didn't really have very good theming. It wasn't that close to the river, which, made it difficult to necessarily get to. Odd.
But after poor attendance, the park was closed, just a year after opening, with many of its attractions being sold off, and the land becoming the site for the Brisbane Convention and Entertainment Centre.
That answers my question
Supernova,
earlier.
the indoor roller coaster, and Centrifuge, the suspended swinging coaster, were sold to Dreamworld Park in Thailand, where they continue to run to this day as Black Hole Coaster and Sky Coaster, respectively. Many of the park's flat rides, such as Spider, Moon Ranger, and UFO, were sold off and are now operated at Luna Park, Sydney, with the exception of UFO, which was dismantled in 2017. The Titan has seemingly travelled the world, first being relocated to Wonderland Sydney as the Demon, before heading to Alabama Adventure as the Zoomerang, and finally settling down at Wonderla in India as a Recoil.
That's so weird that it must be more cost effective to buy someone else's roller coaster than just build one yourself. And that just seems bizarre to me. Surely it would cost more, just as much to build your own, whatever, or less, to build your own than dismantle, ship it in, rebuild it. Maybe I'm wrong, but that seems so bizarre, and especially the fact that this one has gone to all these different places.
The monorail no longer exists at Southbank. The route was deconstructed, with one of the trains and some track pieces being relocated to the existing SeaWorld monorail systems and some track pieces being relocated to the existing SeaWorld monorail system at SeaWorld on the Gold Coast. The other trains were bought back by the manufacturer and are now operating at Europa Park in Germany since 1995.
Wow.
Expo 88 was wildly successful with the public. Organisers promised that Brisbane would never be the same again, and now it shows. The Expo invigorated a new lust for community, culture and leisure for both Brisbane and Queensland people, and since then the city has consistently been on the rise to become one of Australia's best. Whilst only a temporary event, the legacy of Expo 88 lives on around the world. But most importantly, it lives on in the heart of Brisbane. For the home of all things theme parks, I'm Dominic from Review Time.
There you go, Dominic from Review Time. So I would love to know, did the effects of World Expo 88 and World Expo Park, has it lived on to today? Over in Brisbane, are the effects of what happened in 88 still around? Has Brisbane grown partly because of the World Expo of 88? I think it's so good. I was expecting afterwards, it just talks about them dismantling everything, but it's so good that so many of those rides were dismantled, but they were placed somewhere else. The monorail in Germany, for example, in Sydney and all these different places, these old rides are still in use, which seems a bit bizarre to me. Surely they would have just melted it down and start again with something else. That's a really, really cool story. It is a really, really cool story, but I would love to know from you guys, have the effects lasted? Because that was clearly what they wanted to happen. They wanted for it to boost Brisbane. So has it? Let me know in the comments down below. But it's another theme park that has not survived. And I said, I don't know if there's any others. Are there any other theme parks in Australia other than Luna Parks? And there's a few of them, but the problem is Luna Parks not exactly that big, are they? They're not. I don't know if I'd really class them as theme parks. You be the judge of that. But thank you so much. A really interesting video. Again, I love watching and learning about things, and this sort of video is perfect. Thanks so much, and make sure you like and subscribe, and I'll catch you next time.